Yongsu walked through the automatic doors of the Whole Foods in Beverly Hills, California. His two bodyguards flanked him on either side. He did not need groceries. His personal chef handled all of that, but he liked to walk through expensive stores sometimes. It reminded him of how far he had come from the streets of Seoul, where he grew up with nothing. The store was quiet for a Tuesday afternoon. Soft music played from the ceiling speakers. The produce section was arranged like a work of art. Organic vegetables stacked in perfect pyramids, imported fruits glistening under the lights. Everything was clean and orderly. Yongsu moved past the fresh flowers and headed toward the back of the store. He had no destination in mind. He was just killing time before his next meeting. His phone buzzed in his pocket, but he ignored it. Whatever it was could wait. Then he saw her. He stopped walking so suddenly that one of his bodyguards almost bumped into him. His chest tightened. His breath caught in his throat. For a moment, he thought he was seeing a ghost. A woman stood near the day-old bread section. Her clothes were thin and worn. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked tired. She looked hungry. She looked like she had not slept properly in weeks. But even like that, he would recognize her anywhere. Nancy. The woman who had disappeared from his life 5 years ago without a single word. The woman he had searched for across 3 states. The woman he had never stopped thinking about even when he tried to convince himself he had moved on. She was talking to a store employee. Her voice was too quiet for him to hear from this distance, but he could see the desperation in her body language, the way she kept glancing down at something beside her. That was when Yongsu noticed the children. 2 of them, a boy and a girl. They looked about 4 years old. They were clinging to Nancy's worn jacket like they were afraid she might disappear. The little girl had her thumb in her mouth. The little boy was staring at the bread with wide, hungry eyes. Yongsu felt his heart crack open. He watched as the store employee shook his head apologetically. Nancy's shoulders slumped. She nodded and tried to smile like it was no big deal, like she had not just been denied something basic, like her children were not standing there looking at food they could not have. Yongsu took a step closer, then another. His bodyguards exchanged confused looks but followed him silently. He was close enough now to hear Nancy's voice. It was softer than he remembered, more tired, but still unmistakably hers. "Come on, Bobbies," she said to the twins. "Let's go see if there's samples at the other store." The little girl tugged on her jacket. "Mommy, I'm hungry." "I know, sweetheart, I know. We'll find something soon." Yongsu felt tears burn behind his eyes. He had not cried in years. He was a man who controlled millions of dollars in underground operations across California. He had faced down rivals who wanted him dead. He had built an empire through blood and strategy and sheer willpower. And now he was standing in a grocery store, trying not to fall apart, because the woman he loved was begging for food samples with 2 children who had his exact eyes. His eyes. The realization hit him like a punch to the chest. Those children had his eyes, the same shape, the same dark color, the same intensity that he saw every time he looked in the mirror. They were his. He did not need a DNA test. He did not need confirmation. He knew it in his bones. Those were his children, his twins, his blood. And they were hungry. Nancy turned to leave and finally saw him. Her face went through about 5 different emotions in 2 seconds. Shock, fear, shame, pain, and then something that looked almost like anger. She grabbed both children's hands and started walking quickly toward the exit. But the little girl tripped over her own feet and fell hard on the polished floor. She started crying. Nancy froze. She could not pick up her daughter and run at the same time. She was trapped. Yongsu walked toward them slowly. He waved his bodyguards back without looking at them. He did not want to scare her. He did not want to scare the children. He just wanted to help. He knelt down next to the little girl. She was crying and holding her knee. There was no blood, but she was probably going to have a bruise. "Hey there," Yongsu said softly. "That was a big fall. Are you okay?" The little girl looked up at him with watery eyes. His eyes. She sniffled and nodded. You're very brave, he told her. What's your name? Jenna, she whispered. That's a beautiful name. I'm going to help you stand up now, okay, Jenna? She nodded again. Yongsoo carefully helped her to her feet. The little boy had moved closer to Nancy and was watching him with suspicious eyes. What's your name? Yongsoo asked him. The boy did not answer. He just pressed closer to his mother. His name is Milo, Jenna said helpfully. He doesn't talk to strangers. That's very smart of him. Yongsoo finally looked up at Nancy. She was staring at him with tears streaming down her face. She was shaking. Whether from fear or cold or exhaustion, he could not tell. Nancy, he said. Her name felt strange on his tongue after 5 years. Strange but right, like coming home. Yongsoo, her voice cracked on his name. I can explain. I don't need explanations right now, he said. He stood up slowly. Right now, I need to feed these children. Will you let me do that? Nancy's pride was written all over her face. She wanted to say no. She wanted to walk away. She wanted to pretend he had not just caught her at her lowest moment. But then Milo tugged on her jacket. Mommy, I'm really hungry. Nancy's pride crumbled. She closed her eyes and nodded. Yongsoo turned to one of his bodyguards. Get a cart, fill it with whatever they need, whatever they want, and then bring it to my car. The bodyguard nodded and disappeared. Yongsoo looked back at Nancy. We need to talk, but not here, not like this. Will you come with me somewhere private? Nancy hesitated. 5 years of distrust were warring with her desperation. Finally, she nodded again. Yongsoo placed his hand gently on the small of her back. The touch was familiar and foreign at the same time. He guided her and the twins toward the exit. Whatever had happened 5 years ago, whatever had made her run, whatever had brought her to this moment of begging for food in a Beverly Hills grocery store, he was going to find out. And whoever was responsible was going to pay. Why do you think Nancy disappeared 5 years ago without telling Yongsoo she was pregnant with his twins? Drop your theory in the comments below. And please do well to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. Now let's continue. Yongsoo's black Escalade pulled into the parking lot of a quiet cafe in Santa Monica. It was a place he owned but rarely visited. Private. Secure. No cameras except his own. The twins had fallen asleep in the backseat during the 20-minute drive. They were exhausted. Yongsoo could not stop looking at them in the rearview mirror. His children. His flesh and blood. 4 years old and he had missed everything. First steps, first words, first birthdays, all of it stolen from him. He parked the car but did not get out. Neither did Nancy. They sat in heavy silence for a long moment. They're mine, he finally said. It was not a question. Nancy stared straight ahead through the windshield. Yes. Were you ever going to tell me? I tried. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I tried to find you after they were born, but by then I thought. She trailed off. Yongsoo waited. I thought you had moved on, she finished. I thought you were married. Yongsoo turned to look at her directly. Married? Nancy, I spent 2 years looking for you. I hired private investigators. I called every hospital, every police station, every morgue. I thought you were dead. Nancy flinched at the word morgue. I'm sorry. Sorry, he could hear the anger creeping into his voice and fought to control it. You disappeared in the middle of the night. No note, no call, nothing. For 5 years, Nancy, 5 years. And now I find you begging for food with my children who don't even know who I am. You think I wanted this? Nancy's voice cracked. She finally turned to face him, and he could see years of pain written on her face. You think this was my choice? Then tell me what happened. Because I have been living in hell for 5 years trying to understand why the woman I loved abandoned me. Nancy's tears started falling again. She wiped them away angrily like she was frustrated with her own weakness. Someone came to me, she said. About a week before I left, a man. He showed me photographs of you with another woman, a Korean woman. He said you were engaged to her, that the marriage had been arranged since you were teenagers. He said I was just a distraction, a plaything while you were in America. Yongsoo felt his blood run cold. That's a lie. I was never engaged to anyone. I know that now, but back then, Nancy shook her head. He had photographs, Yongsoo. They looked real. You were at a restaurant with her. You were holding her hand. You were looking at her the way you used to look at me. Those photos were fake. They had to be. I never. He also had documents, Nancy continued. Wedding invitations with your name on them, announcements from Korean newspapers. It all looked so real. Yongsoo was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Someone had gone to a lot of trouble to destroy his relationship with Nancy. Someone with access and resources. There's more, Nancy said. He didn't just show me the evidence, he threatened me. What do you mean? He said if I didn't leave quietly, something would happen to my family. My mother was still alive back then. She was sick. He knew things about her that he shouldn't have known. Her hospital, her room number, her medication schedule. Nancy's voice was shaking now. He said if I ever tried to contact you or tell you about the pregnancy, he would make sure my mother never woke up from her next surgery. Yongsoo felt rage building in his chest like a furnace. Someone had threatened the mother of his children. Someone had forced her to run. Someone had stolen his family from him. Who was he? Yongsoo demanded. Did he give you a name? No, he just said he worked for your family, that he was protecting your interests. Nancy looked down at her hands. I was 22 years old. I was pregnant and terrified. My mother was dying. I didn't know what else to do, so I ran. Why didn't you come back after your mother passed? I tried. A year after she died, I finally worked up the courage to look for you. But by then, there were articles online about you, new rumors about your engagement, pictures of you at events with different women. I thought you really had moved on. I thought you didn't want me. Yongsoo reached over and took her hand. She flinched at first, but did not pull away. I never moved on, he said quietly. Those events were business. Those women meant nothing. I was going through the motions because I had to. But every night I thought about you, every single night for 5 years. Nancy started sobbing, deep, painful sobs that shook her whole body. Yongsoo wanted to hold her, but he was not sure she would let him, so he just held her hand and let her cry. When she finally calmed down, he asked the question that had been burning in his mind. How did you end up like this? Homeless, hungry? Why didn't you reach out to anyone for help? Nancy laughed bitterly. Pride, stupidity, I don't know. I had a job for a while. I was working as a home health aide in San Diego. It wasn't great money, but it was enough. Then the company I worked for went out of business. I couldn't find another job fast enough. I fell behind on rent. We got evicted 3 months ago. 3 months, Yongsoo's voice was sharp. You've been on the streets with my children for 3 months. We stayed at shelters mostly. The one in Pasadena is actually pretty decent, but they only let you stay for 30 days at a time. We've been bouncing around. Yongsoo could not listen to any more. His children had been sleeping in shelters, eating at soup kitchens, begging for food samples at grocery stores, while he lived in a mansion with more bedrooms than he could count. This ends now, he said firmly. You're coming home with me, all 3 of you. Yongsoo, I can't just. This is not negotiable, Nancy. I understand you have questions. I understand you don't trust me yet. But my children are not spending another night in a shelter. We'll figure out the rest later. But tonight, you sleep under my roof. Nancy looked back at the sleeping twins. Jenna had her head on Milo's shoulder. They looked peaceful for the first time since he had seen them. Okay, she whispered, just for tonight. Yongsoo knew it would not be just for tonight, but he did not push. He had waited 5 years. He could be patient a little longer. Yongsoo's estate in Atherton, California, was one of the most expensive properties in the entire country. The town itself was known as a haven for tech billionaires and old money families. His house sat on 3 acres of manicured grounds with a pool, a tennis court, and a guest house larger than most regular homes. When the Escalade pulled through the iron gates, Nancy's jaw dropped. This is where you live. This is where we live now, Yongsoo corrected her gently. The twins had woken up during the last few minutes of the drive. They were pressed against the windows, staring at everything with wide eyes. "Mommy, is this a castle?" Milo asked. "It does look like a castle," Nancy admitted. "Are there dragons?" Jenna asked excitedly. Yongsoo laughed. It was the first time he had laughed genuinely in months. "No dragons, but I do have a dog. His name is Bruno. He's very friendly." "A dog?" Jenna was practically vibrating with excitement. "Can I pet him?" "You can pet him as much as you want." The car stopped in front of the main entrance. Yongsoo's household staff was already lined up to greet them. He had called ahead to prepare rooms and food. The twins climbed out of the car and stared at everything. The fountain in the circular driveway, the massive oak doors, the perfectly trimmed hedges shaped like animals. A large golden retriever came bounding around the corner of the house. Jenna squealed with delight and ran toward him. Bruno was well-trained and gentle. He immediately flopped onto his back to let Jenna rub his belly. Milo was more cautious. He stayed close to Nancy, holding her hand tightly. He was watching Yongsoo with those suspicious eyes again. "Hey, Milo," Yongsoo said, kneeling down to his level. "I know this is all very new and strange. You don't have to trust me right away. But I promise you I'm going to take good care of you and your mom and your sister. Okay." Milo considered this for a moment. "Do you have dinosaurs?" "No real dinosaurs, but I think I might have some dinosaur books in the library. Want me to show you later?" Milo nodded slowly. It was not trust yet, but it was a start. The housekeeper, a kind woman named Rosa who had worked for Yongsoo for years, showed Nancy and the twins to their rooms. There was a large suite for Nancy with a connected room for the children. Everything was clean and comfortable, and probably cost more than Nancy had earned in her entire life. Yongsoo gave them time to settle in while he made some phone calls. His first call was to Vincent, his most trusted advisor and friend. Vincent had been with him since the early days. He was loyal, smart, and ruthless when necessary. "I need you to investigate something," Yongsoo said. 5 years ago, someone approached a woman named Nancy Chen. They showed her fake evidence that I was engaged to someone else. They threatened her family. They made her disappear. Vincent was quiet for a moment. "This is the Nancy, the one you searched for." "Yes, she's here now, with my children." "Children?" "Twins, 4 years old. I'll explain everything later. Right now, I need you to find out who was behind this. Someone in my organization had access to create fake documents and photos. Someone knew enough about her life to threaten her mother." "That narrows it down significantly," Vincent said. 5 years ago, only a handful of people had that level of access. I'll start digging immediately. Be discreet. I don't want to tip anyone off." "Understood. I'll have preliminary information within 48 hours. Yongsoo hung up and stared out the window of his office. The sun was setting over the Silicon Valley hills. Somewhere in this beautiful landscape was a traitor. Someone who had stolen 5 years from him. Someone who had made the mother of his children suffer. He would find them, and when he did, they would regret ever being born. That night, Yongsoo ate dinner with Nancy and the twins in the main dining room. The children were overwhelmed by the amount of food. Milo ate 3 helpings of pasta. Jenna could not stop talking about Bruno, who was lying under the table waiting for dropped scraps. Nancy was quieter. She picked at her food and kept looking around like she expected to wake up from a dream at any moment. After dinner, Yongsoo helped put the twins to bed. It felt strange and wonderful at the same time. Jenna insisted on a bedtime story. Yongsoo found a book about a princess and a dragon and read it to them while they snuggled under their new blankets. By the end of the story, both children were asleep. Yongsoo stood in the doorway for a long time, just watching them breathe. These were his children, his legacy, his future, and they had no idea who he really was. He found Nancy on the balcony outside her room. She was staring at the stars. "They're beautiful," he said, coming to stand beside her. "The stars. The children." Nancy smiled sadly. "They look like you. Everyone always said so. I couldn't deny who their father was even if I wanted to." "Tell me about them. Tell me everything I missed." So she did. She told him about the pregnancy, about the difficult labor, about bringing them home from the hospital alone, about Milo's first word, which was book, about Jenna's first steps, which she took at 9 months old while chasing a butterfly. She told him about sleepless nights and first days of preschool and birthday parties in tiny apartments. She told him about Milo's love of dinosaurs and Jenna's obsession with anything pink. She told him about the time they both had the flu, and she thought she was going to lose her mind from exhaustion. Young-soo listened to every word. He felt joy and pain in equal measure, joy at learning about his children, pain at knowing he had missed it all. When Nancy finally stopped talking, there were tears on both their faces. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry I believed the lies. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I kept them from you." "You did what you thought was right," Young-soo said. "You were protecting yourself and your mother. I don't blame you for that. I blame whoever did this to us." He reached out and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. "I'm going to find them, Nancy. I'm going to find out who destroyed our lives, and I'm going to make sure they can never hurt us again." Nancy nodded. She believed him. For the first time in 5 years, she actually believed that things might get better. 3 days passed. The twins were adjusting to their new life faster than anyone expected. Milo had discovered the library and spent hours looking at dinosaur books. Jenna had become Bruno's shadow, following the dog everywhere around the property. Nancy was struggling more. She felt out of place in the massive house. She did not know how to interact with the staff. She kept apologizing for everything, even things that did not require apologies. Young-soo tried to give her space while still being present. He took the twins to the park. He taught Milo how to play chess. He let Jenna paint his nails bright pink because she asked nicely. He was falling in love with his children more every day. On the 4th day, Vincent arrived with his preliminary report. They met in Young-soo's private office. The room was soundproof and swept for bugs twice daily. Whatever was discussed here stayed here. "I traced the fake photographs," Vincent began. "They were created using software that was cutting-edge 5 years ago, very expensive. The source files were deleted, but I found metadata that points to a specific computer." "Which computer?" "One that was located in your San Francisco headquarters at the time, in the office that belonged to your cousin." Young-soo felt his jaw tighten. "Dominic." "It gets worse. The threatening messages sent to Nancy's phone came from a burner, like we expected. But the burner was purchased at a convenience store 3 blocks from the San Francisco office.